Hey guys, how you all doing? BionicleSaurus here, and in this video we are going to be taking a look at the Papo Apatosaurus. The overall appearance of this figure is very, very realistic, which is something that we have of course come to expect from Papo. All the amazingly sculpted musculature and all the skin texturing and the rather lovely blend of various shades of brown really does make this look like a real living animal that you could imagine just walk off the screen right now. Despite looking very lifelike and realistic though, this figure is somewhat boring. The first noticeably somewhat drab thing about this figure's appearance is of course the paint job. While it's very well done, it is pretty much just brown and tan and gray, and it's not very visually striking at all. Overall, while this figure has an amazing hyper-realism to it, with all the detail and amazing musculature and the very lifelike, fluid-looking pose, it's just not that interesting. There's nothing flashy or memorable about it. So, for overall appearance, I give this figure a B+. It may be somewhat drab and you could even say boring, but I can't deny just how realistic and just how lifelike and just wonderful this figure does look for what it is. When it comes to detail, well, it's Papo. I mean, at this point, do we even have to explain further? Of course the detail's gonna be amazing. Now, this particular figure actually does not have individually sculpted scales. Instead, it's actually covered in a lot of little wrinkles and lines, and while at first I was put off by this, I actually think in the end it was a good idea, and here's why. This was a huge, huge dinosaur, and while the scales would have been big overall, in proportion to the overall size of the animal, they would have looked really tiny, and so to sculpt them at a proportionally accurate size would have been almost impossible. And so, bearing that in mind, I think that the detail of this figure is truly amazing, just like what we have come to expect from Papo after all these years of amazingly detailed and textured dinosaur figures. So, my final rating for the detail of this figure is a straight A. When it comes to accuracy, Papo actually did a great job on this figure. I can only really find about 3 or so little issues. First off, the front feet are actually perfectly correct, with the only visible claw being this large thumb claw pointing inwards. However, the back feet are not perfect. They have actually shown all 5 toes having claws here, and in reality there should only be claws on the inner 3. The outer 2 toes really should just be sort of little stubs. The second issue is actually kind of a retro style thing to do, and that is that they actually put the nostrils on top of the head, a rather outdated depiction for the nostrils of a sauropod. As we now know, they were of course on the tip of the snout like just any other dinosaur. And finally, we come to the neck. Now, don't get me wrong, Apatosaurus had a huge, thick, boxy neck and gigantic vertebrae, but they really shrink-wrapped it here. They really overdefined the shape of the vertebrae. And in reality, it really should be more of just a smooth, big, fat, wide neck. It shouldn't be so similar to the actual shape of the skeleton underneath. It's definitely over-shrink-wrapped in my opinion. A good example of an accurate Apatosaurian neck is actually in a painting of Apatosaurus by wonderful paleo artist John Conway. If you just look up something like John Conway Apatosaurus on Google Images, you should find it. And there you go. That's it when it comes to inaccuracies. I mean, seriously, the overall just proportions and everything else about this figure is pretty much perfectly spot on, and that's very impressive coming from Papo, I must say. So, for accuracy, I give this figure another straight A. And finally, we come to the overall rating, and my final overall rating for this figure is an A-. I think Papo really did a good job on this one, and it is one of my favorite herbivore figures from them of all time. Thank you for watching, and BionicleSaurus signing out.